Welcome and thank you so much for being here for this historic occasion, the renaming of the western span of the Bay Bridge for Willie L. Brown, Jr. I can think of no structure that exemplifies the life of this former Speaker of the Assembly and Mayor of San Francisco than Bridge. He spent a lifetime providing a pathway so that millions of Californians could improve their lives. Please stand now as we sing, along with the first song, maybe. This is a wonderful occasion because we not only will sing the national anthem, we will sing the Negro national anthem after that. This is the two-time Grammy Award-winning Boys Choir Academy, Pacific Boys Choir Academy. And we welcome them as they lead us in these three songs under the direction of the founder and artistic director, Kevin Fox.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight our ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' racket
Thank you very, very much. The Pacific Boy Choir Academy. An academy that is supported by Willie Lewis Brown. Well, you know, it took the state legislature to make today a reality. But before that, it took the imagination, the drive, and the political savvy of a woman who is president of the California NAACP and a member of its national board. Alice Huffman decided there could be no better way to celebrate Black History Month than to make history. And that is why we are here today. And Alice, for that, we owe you a big debt of gratitude. Stand wherever you are. There's Alice. Thank you for being our official host today. I also doubt there are many people here today that can't be called either a celebrity or a dignitary. So what I'm going to do now, since all of you are special, is just read a few names of the special specials. We'll start with the mayor of San Francisco, Mayor Ed Lee. Jeff Adachi is here. Corky Booz is here. Mark Farrell is here. London Breed is here. George Gascon is here. Kamala Harris is here. And Gwen Moore is here. And Kevin Shelley. And Reggie Jones Sawyer. Chief Greg Schur is here, and Fire Chief Joan Hayes White, as well as all of you very special people. We welcome you. Carmen Chu, your name is on my list, as is Deborah Bowen. So we are delighted that all of you who are here and allowed me not to use your titles today. Unfortunately, I have to inform you that Ambassador Andrew Young was unable to leave his home in Atlanta, Georgia. You know what that means because of the snow and ice storm that they are trying to cope with this time better than the last. It was too threatening for him to travel. So Ambassador Young, who was a constant companion of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was emotional about missing this very historic occasion. He had hoped for an opportunity to talk to you about the bridge between the sacrifices of the movement and its connection to the progress shown by this ceremony today. However, he suggested another warrior, a man who was Dr. King's personal attorney, one of his political advisors, and for historical reasons, he was also one of his draft speechwriters, and one of those who assisted him in writing the iconic I Have a Dream speech. Dr. Clarence B. Jones is currently a visiting professor at the University of San Francisco and a scholar in residence at the Martin Luther King Jr. Institute at Stanford University. Dr. Jones is here to pick up the mantle for Ambassador Young, and Dr. Clarence Jones, we welcome you to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And additionally, I think that the organizers of this program are testing my disciplined skills, because I'm also a professor at the University of San Francisco and teach a graduate program on the art of advocacy speechwriting. So I find that I have been limited to a very short period of time, but let me just say this. It is fitting that the naming of this bridge occurs in the 50th anniversary year of the 1964 Civil Rights Movement and the 50th anniversary of the crusade of students from the universities, principally from the North, from across the nation, who journeyed to Mississippi to register the vote. That student crusade 50 years ago and Congressman John Lewis' efforts to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge galvanized and mobilized the consciousness of a nation, resulting in the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There is a line that connects the 1965 Civil Rights Voting Rights Act, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and the crossing of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and the crusade to register unregistered blacks in Mississippi. There's a line that connects that movement to here today. So, Willie, my friends, it's not just about the naming of the bridge. It's the historical context within which this naming occurs. Several years ago, and I'm limited by time, but I'll just say this. Several years ago, Dr. King said, you know, I need you to go back to California because this fellow, Jesse Unruh, wants to meet with me. And I don't know what it's about, and I don't think, I don't think I should meet with him. I think you should go out. So I go out and I meet with Jesse Unruh. And first of all, I thought it was a strange name. And then I learned, I did my little homework, understand it was a very powerful dude, Jesse Unruh. And we talked about what we had to talk about. But during the course of the meeting, he kept talking about this young man that he thought so much of, Willie Brown, Jr. So I got back to Dr. King and I said, we talked about a lot of things, but he likes this Willie Brown Jr. Did you meet him? I said, no. I said, but whoever he is, he must be something. So, several years later. But my point is, there is a line that connects what has happened so much in this country to the work that this extraordinary public servant has done. Now, I was a corporate finance lawyer and in the investment banking business, Willie. So I have to ask a question that nobody else may wants to ask, but is relevant to me. I don't know which side of the bridge is you're being named for, but I just want to know, is it the same side that they collect the money? Now, I don't want to diminish the accomplishment, but that's the first thing, I learned in Wall Street, and God knows I learned it with Martin, follow the money. So I want to say personally, and I am, of course, the gratuitous beneficiary. 83 years I lived. 83 years, I'm the gratuitous beneficiary, but to be here and to be able to speak about you and to speak where I know our mutual brother Andrew Young would, if he could be, is one of the great privileges that has been accorded to me. So I thank you. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to salute you. Thank you so much.
It takes courageous people to do courageous things. So now I want to talk to you about the man who managed the journey of ACR 65 through the State Assembly, the binding resolution that gave life to Alice's dream, and the installation of the prominent signs that we should see, hopefully by the time we're going home. About midday, the signs should be unveiled, and you will be able to see them if you're traveling in the right direction. From the 64th District of Los Angeles, please welcome Assemblyman Isidore Hall.
An old man going a lone highway came at the evening cold and gray to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The sullen stream had no fear for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you are wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with this ending day. You never again shall pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why, Willie, would you build this bridge at evening tide? The builder lifted up his old great head and said, good friend, in the path I have come, he said, there follow after me today a needy youth who must come this way. This chasm that has been as naught to me, to that fear-headed youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in twilight dim. Good friend, I am building this bridge for him. Indicative of Willie L. Brown, Jr. Good morning, Speaker Brown, Lieutenant Governor Newsom, Attorney General Kamala Harris, the Chairwoman of the Legislative Black Caucus, the Honorable Senator Holly Mitchell, and the members of the Legislative Black Caucus. Will you please stand? Led by our chairperson, Holly Mitchell. Mayor Lee, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not already noticed, this day is all about a man named Willie L. Brown, Jr. But this day is really not about Willie Brown. This day is all about a boy from Mineola, Texas. But this day is really not about a young man from the Southeast Texas area. This day is all about a man who broke down barriers of class, of race, of political ideology to build a city and a state that continues to be the envy of the world. So like I said, this day is really not about Speaker Brown. It's about a lot more. My name is Isidore Hall, and it is with privilege to author ACR 65, the resolution naming the western span of the Bay Bridge the Willie L. Brown Jr. Bridge, for which we celebrate today. I need not repeat Speaker Brown's credentials that led to this great, great honor. His history is literally etched in stone, and it's also etched in the skyline of this great city, in the halls and in the chambers of the California State Capitol. The 41st mayor of San Francisco and the first black mayor of San Francisco. The first African-American Speaker of the California State Legislature, and the longest ever in the history of California. But I do not need to tell you about how a resolution honoring one of San Francisco's and California's greatest sons went from what I thought would be a no-brainer into one of California's biggest political battles in 2013, the naming of this bridge. It was indeed baptism by fire. It was pure old school San Francisco politics. It was classic Willie L. Brown Jr. Many local dignitaries today may not recognize me. Well, while that is likely true, since I proudly live and represent the good people of Compton, California, and the surrounding communities of South Los Angeles. But when Alice Huffman, the president of the California NAACP, approached me about carrying this resolution honoring Speaker Brown, I asked the president, Madam President, the question is not whether I will author it, but the question is how big will the sign be? But quite honestly, the first conversation was, let's make it happen. Bay Area media reporters were clever enough to figure out that yes, Compton is a little bit down the road from San Francisco, And people were asking, why would a little black boy from Compton be authoring something on the other side of California? He needs to stay in Compton. And they began to question, what is a black man doing? The answer is quite simple. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today to let you know that the contributions of the Honorable Speaker, the Mayor, Willie Brown, have impacted more people outside of San Francisco. It has impacted and changed the lives of people of California and throughout this great nation. Willie Brown will forever be a legacy not known to just San Francisco residents, but people across the world. And so me sponsoring a bill from Compton, I've been touched, even in Compton, by the great work of Speaker Willie Brown. From the dusty train station in Willits, to the community gardens and family farmers markets in Watts, from the gold-rich hills of Coloma to the streets of Compton, Willie Brown is now and forever will be interlinked in the history of California, with his name being on one of the most traveled bridges in the United States of these Americas. I should not be standing before you today as a member of the California State Legislature, but for Willie Brown paving the way for minorities and people of color like me and many, many others. Statistically, as an African-American male in my early 40s, I should either be raised in Compton in South Central Los Angeles, I should either be in jail on drugs or dead. Statistically, Willie Brown should have never graduated from college or law school or become the longest serving speaker in the history of the California State Assembly. But he chose, ladies and gentlemen, a different path. We are here today because of the path that he chose. We are here today because of people like Willie Brown, who was a forerunner for many minorities and people of color across this great nation. He said the status quo was not acceptable. Willie Brown challenged the written and unwritten rules about who could succeed in history in this great state and in our local communities. My mother was raised in the segregated southern Texas, who, like Speaker Brown, was required to attend segregated schools and live in a nation that too long wanted them to be separated, but called equal. The story of Willie Brown is the story of many African Americans, of minorities of all backgrounds, and why today's naming is so important to those that look different or love different than the founders of this great nation. While this resolution received overwhelming support in both the Assembly and in the State Senate, the final vote, however, did not reflect the months of behind-the-scenes work that went into this final outcome. As this resolution went through the legislative process, I was frankly, ladies and gentlemen, quite surprised that in spite of Speaker Brown's credentials and his history in the Assembly, in spite of his contributions to the institution and to the people of California, in spite of him building people up when others were tearing them down, in spite of him traveling across this nation, opening doors and breaking ceiling glasses and opening up paved ways for people that could be successful in this community and in our nation, the resolution almost did not get out of the first policy committee. They said it was something about the rules. They said it was something about Speaker Brown still being alive. I said, rules about being alive? Well, that's new. Because as I began, Speaker Brown, to research, California has honored many of its sons and daughters who are very much still alive and still contributing to our great state. However, he will be and is the only African American in the state of California with a bridge or any structure, state structure named after him. He will be the first in the history of California. Is he alive? Yes, he is. Is he well and kicking? Yes, he is. Is he deserving of this bridge? Yes, he is. So I need not recite the list of those still very much alive. Those who have a courthouse or a bridge or a highway or a street named after them. But take my word for it, the list is very long. They include former governors, former members of Congress and state legislatures, to name a few. But when this resolution was presented in committee, it was a Republican who made the motion, much to the objection of the chair. It was a Republican making a motion to name this great bridge for the great work that Willie Brown is doing and has done for the people of California. It was the latest example of how, as Speaker and how, as Mayor, Willie Brown was able to build his own bridges across barriers of race, his own bridges across barriers of class or political ideology to find common ground. You don't need to be from San Francisco to know that this bridge is an international icon. As people run and come from all over the world and visit this beautiful city and this incredible state, as people commute to and from work every day, building our community, educating the next generation and caring the most vulnerable, as people gaze upon the twinkling lights and the sweeping cables of the Willie L. Brown Jr. Bridge from now and into the future, we need not think of this as a bridge named after Willie Brown. Anyone who knows him knows that Willie Brown Jr. is the bridge that makes the ends connect. And from this day forward, people will cross that bridge, minorities, people of color, and alike, and they will ask themselves, what makes this man so great? And what makes him so great is transforming this great state of California and our capital into the institution that we know it as of today. We are honored, Speaker Brown. We are honored, Mayor Brown, to stand with you as we cross these bridges together. God bless you, and God bless the state of California. God bless you.
Well, now we know why we're here. He was leading the battle. Of course we're here. So thank you very much, Assemblyman Isidore Hall. I want to mention a couple of other elected officials who are here before I introduce the next high-level elected official. Supervisor Jane Kim is here, Malia Cohen, and Dennis Herrera, all here. He was a supervisor. He was a mayor of San Francisco. And he is now our lieutenant governor. He is the person here representing the executive branch of government in the state of California today. And of course, I'm talking about our lieutenant governor. And we know that is Gavin Newsom. So Gavin Newsom.
Thank you, Bill. Hell, I was supposed to do the introduction, Isidore. What the hell was that? I got nothing left. Seriously, I was about to walk away, not feeling well. Dr. Jones, you're welcome to come back up and finish your 10-minute speech. They said 120 seconds. Damn. Ain't right. So I was trying to figure out how the hell we got here today, but now I know how. But then I got thinking a little bit more. You know, it makes sense, right? The Bay Bridge, the Willie Brown Bridge. This bridge, as Isidore said, brings people together, casts the big shadow. It's very, very expensive to maintain. And when there's gridlock, it's the first thing we complain about. Makes sense. Now, I know the real shadow that's been cast is, you know, it's going to be fun, right? What's Jerry Brown going to do about this? It's on your minds. I know it's on my mind. Man, You know, and I've been paying a lot of attention. I imagine you guys as well about what's going on. You know, there's a little one-upmanship, not just happening out here in California, but between Governor Brown and Governor Christie. Have you paid any attention? Remember that last year wasn't right. Governor Christie referred to our governor as a retread. That wasn't right. And the governor, Governor Brown, quickly responded. Candy Crowley, you may have watched it on a Sunday. He immediately responded to Governor Christie and he said, I challenge Governor Christie to pull-ups, push-ups, and a 3-mile race. It was getting heated. So now, you're thinking about this, right? After that George Washington bridge closure, just 2 lanes. I'm a little worried about my commute today. I mean, the chances of Jerry shutting down the entire Bay Bridge and forcing him to bike back to work is real. It is very real. You may want to get out here early. On a serious note, you know, 2000, I'm thinking back, everything's in tens now. I'm thinking back 2004, all the focus on a drought. And this is a true story. And I want to be sincere here and serious. In 2004, something remarkable happened in California. 6 inches of rain fell in Death Valley, the hottest and driest place in the world. 6 inches of rain fell in that remarkable fall day. What was even more remarkable was in the spring of 2005, the entire valley was carpeted with wildflowers. Turns out Death Valley wasn't dead, it was dormant. The seeds of possibility had been planted years and years before, waiting for the right conditions to come along. And when the right conditions come along, success becomes irresistible. I say that to say this. You look back at Willie Brown's career, you talk about those seeds of possibility. We're going to celebrate tomorrow 10 years of marriage equality here in San Francisco. Well, what about 1975, when homosexuality was illegal in this state until Willie Brown decided to change that course of history? The seeds of possibility were planted many, many years ago. I can go on and on. Think about an issue. Think about the reflection of life of Nelson Mandela. Think about the end of apartheid. Think about those seeds of possibility, as Dr. Jones was referring to, that were planted in those early days of apartheid. The crisis on HIV and AIDS and where Willie Brown was, on women's rights, on civil rights. You can go down that list. And Willie Brown was there each and every time. It's an extraordinary life. You know, I'll close with this, but it's just true. Some politicians appear eminent because of the flatness of the surrounding terrain. It's true. I mean, a lot of politicians, their success is the failure of others. They'll put the thumb down on other people's success. Not Willie Brown. Every single one of you. Look around. Every single one of you are here, successful politically and personally, because Willie Brown was there each and every time to build you up. That's a legacy. That's why we're here naming this bridge. That's success in life. So, Willie, let me thank you, because I'm here because of you. Let me thank you for being so outsized. Thank you for, at times, being outrageous. Thank you for being impeccably outfitted. I had to go there. Thank you for being outspoken. But more important than anything else, thank you for always being outstanding. This is your day. You deserve it. Willie Brown, get on up here. Everybody, step on up. Thank you, Willie Brown, for all your extraordinary accomplishments. Proud of you, brother.
Thank you. I wouldn't want anybody else to introduce you. Nobody. Seriously. Nobody.
Governor Newsom, thank you very much That's what he thinks he is. So what are we? Why deny it? I am just delighted that you came to help celebrate this occasion. I must tell you that I'm overwhelmed by all of you. I think I'd have to pause, though, for a moment and ask every person who's here that served with me in the California legislature, either the Senate or the Assembly, during those tumultuous 30-plus years, if you would just rise and let people see who you are. Obviously, we can't introduce all of you, but please rise and let people see who you are. You should know that my colleagues were the ones who gave me the foundation to do many of the things that Mr. Newsom spoke about. But the real foundation was a woman whose birthday we are celebrating today. My mother, Minnie, many years ago, passed on. She would have been 105 today, 11th of February. And at one time when she was evidencing some degree of illness, we decided as a family to have a reunion every February 11th so we could let her know how much we really loved her and respected her. We had no idea that she was faking exits. It took us 20 years or more of doing those. But the family hasn't been together, frankly, in many, many years. And when President Huffman and the Assembly members in the Black Caucus led by Mr. Hall said that they were going to do this bridge thing, and they did it, and said, okay, now let's have the unveiling of the sign. Said, no, let's wait till Black History Month, and let's do it on my mother's birthday, and it will mean something to my family, and it'll mean something by virtue of Black history to African Americans. And so my family all came from wherever they were. And one sister that had, was with it, no longer was with us, had 12 children. Another sister had 9 boys. One sister had one brother had none. But they were all here. They literally are all here. So if you just please give my family a round of applause for sharing this day and this moment. You want them to stand up. Why do I always get orders? Only about half of them are standing up. They've had a good time. They came in, some of them came in as early as Saturday, and they've been here for all the days moving around and renewing friendships and acquaintanceships because they have invariably traveled with me wherever I've gone, and I share this moment with them on this occasion of bridge naming. I also share it with a whole host of non-family members. I have treasured my friendships with a collection of people from around the country, politically, socially, culturally, educationally, business world, you name it. And those friendships and those relationships have just meant a whole lot. And to see so many of you who have shown up on this occasion, a couple of you I didn't even know were still alive, and and you showed up. And even earlier this morning, I walked through the door. Well, wait a minute, where'd you come from? But I am absolutely floored with the incredible level of the gathering of all of you who have shown up for this occasion, and I am deeply honored. You have made it possible for me really to begin to brag legitimately. Now, Mr. Mayor, Greg Sir was on the command staff when I was mayor. I don't understand why he doesn't have better control now that he's chief. It has been, frankly, a great journey. All of the years that I have been allowed to do public service. And in planning this event, as usual, if you know me, you know that I was involved in every single solitary component, even to the end, when I wouldn't even come down until the kids had done their singing, because I want to make sure that all the rest of you were seated where you're supposed to be seated and you were comfortable. Oh, that's just my nature and how I kind of do things. But I got to tell you that the collection of folk who stepped up, and if you look on the back of your program that you have, you will see a laundry list, and incidentally, it's only partial, because there are a number of people whose names didn't make the list for no reason other than the fact that I didn't personally supervise the list. Eleanor had that responsibility. In this business, one of the components of leadership is always making sure, Mr. Mayor, you have somebody to blame. And the one you select, make sure that they are solid and foundation enough so they can take it and absorb it and keep on moving. Well, many of you around this, as I look around, we thought, 200 or 300 people would show up, and lo and behold, there's a hell of a lot more than 200 or 300 people. And it's not that we had a shortage of chairs. I know that some people planned to make an impression by having only a few chairs in a small place to do it, and we didn't do that. We wanted so that we could all celebrate, but I had no clue that so many of you didn't have anything to do on Tuesday morning and were looking for a free cup of coffee. And you're here. I am just floored that so many of you are here. I must also tell you that there was a great debate on the staff side of the presentation of this event. They said, we better do a tent because, it hadn't rained in California in almost a year, and suddenly it started to rain. They said, we got to do a tent because we don't want any of the people to get wet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, what have you. Or we put it on the inside, and no, you can't do any of that. And then they kept giving us the countdown date, and it kept raining and raining and raining, and I kept being very comfortable. I said, we're doing it on my mother's birthday. And they said, what does that mean? I said, you don't know that old woman. She's got a relationship with the Lord. And I think under all circumstances, the sun will be shining on her oldest boy on the date when you do the bridge. And so credit my mother with the sunshine. And Clarence, you are correct to ask that question, because when Alice finally called me, they did this all in secret initially. They did not want me to be involved at all for fear that I would cause it to fail, I suppose. I'm not sure exactly, but they didn't want me involved. They would just, keeping it out of my sight completely until some enterprising reporter, fellow journalist, called me up and said, did you and how did you orchestrate this business of getting bridge being considered for being named after you? So, well, what are you talking about? He said, well, they talk about naming the Bay Bridge after you. And I said, oh, I don't think that that's going to happen. That's not possible. I'm too controversial. I'm also alive. And of course, they said, well, they are. So I called Eleanor. So Eleanor, find out what's happening with this bridge naming. And of course, Eleanor got back to me and she told me what was happening. And I called Alice and Alice hung up. She didn't want to hear me at all. She was going to do it no matter what. And I must tell you that I'm glad she did hang up because it has occurred, and I am now, about to have the unveiling on the bridge itself. But they screwed up in that they got the wrong end of the bridge. I share your view, Brother Jones, but I guess that's what happens to black people in America. You got the achievement, and they change the rules. That's kind of the way it works. But it is an incredible, on a serious note, it is, frankly, an incredible achievement. And it's something that I'm going to enjoy day in and day out. I love Cat on the Streets the other day when he read that the bridge is being named after me. He said, I'm a kind of a teabagger guy. I don't like you at all. But you know what? I'm going to enjoy rolling over you every day when I go out to work. I always want to be accommodating, so and I'll tell you how significant this bridge is from an African American's standpoint. Little kids in the schoolyard. I go to make a speech at the school, and I know that I've been kind of out of politics for a while officially, unelected for a while, and I wandered through the schoolyard, and little kids stopped, and they kept checking me out and what have you, and I'm hoping they think I'm Jay-Z or somebody, but they don't ask that question at all. I go on in and I do whatever I got to do in the school, and I start to come out. And as I start to come out, this little, probably 8-year-old black kid who now has all of his little friends lined up because he clearly, in this highly integrated school, has been telling them exactly something about me in a positive fashion. He's been really talking about me and probably bragging about me. But he said, hey, Mister. I said, yes. He said, who did you used to be? Now I'm going to answer that question. I'm a bridge. I am honored and grateful. I must tell you that with the width and breadth of the elected family of California at every level that showed up, from the Lieutenant Governor to the Attorney General to the Secretary of State, all of whom are here, to the members of the Senate, the members of the California State Assembly with whom I served, or the Mayor of San Francisco, the Mayor of Oakland, or the Vice Mayor of Richmond, or in the Mayor of one of those little towns down there near your place, Hawthorne. I don't know where in the hell Hawthorne is, but I don't. But I know. It's California. But just the collections of members of city councils and boards of supervisors, I tell you that the delegation from Atlanta couldn't get here because they could not leave, except one member of the delegation left a day early, and she's city council, so she's here. Councilwoman Bottoms is here representing that whole collection of people, and she's obviously in the company of Gene Duffy, Joe Mosk, and a whole bunch of other people who came in from Atlanta for the purpose. There are people here from Connecticut, like my friend Frank Borges and others, who are really doing what they do well by coming to celebrate on this occasion. I just wished I could cite each and every one of you, those who are active, those who are retired, those who are applicants for continuation. I'm just overwhelmed by the show of support, and I hope that as the years unfold, and if the projections stated by Mr. Hall are true, and that in the poem that others will use that bridge, if others will use my life and what I have done and the methods and the levels of service, in spite of some of the terms used by Newsom in describing me, if they would use my life as a means by which to participate in making public policy, executing public policy, then at all times they will be doing it on behalf of other people. That was the basis of my life. That's the basis, I think, ultimately of my success, and I'm just delighted that the affirmation of that work product is now enshrined by name in the second most often used bridge in this great country. And I say to each and every one of you, I am just delighted, and I will continue to be delighted, and I do, and I will practice bragging rights every time I get a chance. And I may even enhance, as I occasionally do, I may enhance the reasons why the bridge. I was at an event recently, and I said something to somebody, and I remembered that there was a guy who owned a phrase that I absolutely loved, and turned out to be one of my friends. And I said to him, as I close my remarks on the bridge naming, I want you to say exactly what I wished had been my original closing line. And with that, let me ask my friend to say that at this moment. My life has been, for me, a work of art in every way. And I simply tell you, I guarantee it.
You're invited to come back inside for refreshments, and maybe even a surprise or two. You can never tell with this guy, so you don't want to leave too soon. Okay, thank you and good morning.